Hey monkeys, how you doing? Damien Keys here. Welcome to the channel which is dedicated to you, the musician. And today is a Monday morning and I thought I would go in hard and heavy with politics. Now I know what you're thinking, don't go anywhere, but whilst musicians don't like thinking a lot about politics in the future and all that kind of stuff, this is really important because if the hits the fan, this is stuff that you are going to need to know. And having built businesses in the last two recessions, things get sticky and I want you guys to be prepared because that is what this is all about. Now, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but there is a lot of unrest and a lot of political activities going on. And whilst I'm not amazing at politics, I also don't want to lose work, so I keep my eye on these things. And at the moment in the UK, you've got the Brexit issue of will we, won't we leave Europe. In America, there's a few other issues with things like the US-China trade agreement and other political issues around. Now, what this does is this makes people uncertain. And when people are uncertain about things, they tend to not spend money. And you want to think about the country as money circulates like blood. It just goes round and round and round and people are spending money. And then when they get worried about something, they go, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I won't spend that money on a new house or a new car or something. And therefore that stops the circulation of money because the shopkeeper then goes, oh, I haven't got enough money to pay for my stuff, and it doesn't go round and round in circles, in very basic terms. So in 2008, we had a massive recession with all the bank crisis. And in order to fix it, what the banks in the UK did, the Bank of England did, is it dropped the interest rates down to next to nothing. And it also did a thing called quantitative easing where it bunged a bunch of kind of money into the system. The problem with that is it doesn't mean there's extra money as such. It feels like it does, but it's a bit of a kind of confidence booster to give you extra money. You've got more money in your hand in order to spend it. However, because of economics, what happens is if it just injects loads and loads and loads of money into the system, just prints more money like it did in the early 20th century, when that happens, all that happens is your loaf of bread is now worth £8 instead of being worth £1. So effectively it's a bit of a kind of fake confidence. Now that's what happened. Now at the moment we've got a lot of unrest. People are a bit worried about what's happening and things are slowing down. So I'm not saying we are about to have a recession, and I also don't want to scaremonger, but I want you guys to be prepared because I've been through this twice. Once in 2001 and once in 2008. And recessions tend to come every 10 years, and it's been 10 years since the last one. So even if it's another year or 2 years until this happens, it looks like we are on the verge of something, and so therefore being prepared is a big factor in you surviving the recession. So in a recession, there is work, but everything gets squeezed, and you need to be better in a recession than you are out of a recession, because whilst there is work, everybody is fighting for that work. So if you're in a covers band or teaching work or session work, it is there, but there's less of it and more people trying to get it. So think of it like this. If any of you have ever been in a covers band or done work for a covers band, now getting gigs on a Saturday in August, I mean, that's easy. Anyone can get gigs on a Saturday in August because of the demand, of the amount of parties and weddings and people wanting bands on a Saturday in August, millions of them. If you want to get a gig on a Thursday in November, very, very difficult. If you want to get a Sunday in February, very, very difficult because there's a lot less work. So you're really fighting, and the really strong people, the really good people will still be able to get that work in November and in February, even though it's a quieter time. And so you need to be better in a recession than you do out of a recession because the competition is higher. But the good news is, in tough times, people look for escapism. They look for something that's going to take them away from the crap that is around their life at the time. And what better thing than music, which leads to a lot of opportunities in a recession. So it's not all doom and gloom. And this video is about two parts. What to do leading up to if we have a recession, and notice I say if we have a recession, and then the second part is what to do if we are in a recession. And if you ask me, I do think we are on our way to some kind of meltdown. So like I said, we're not in a recession right now, but the signs are pointing to something that could potentially be a recession. So what can we do now so that if we do have one, we are fully prepared? Tip number one, you need to double down on your content now. This is for the long term and not the short term. So things, if we have a recession, will get very competitive. So start now. If you can make more content around your playing, do it. If you have time in a day, set up your camera, do some playing. If you can do some tomorrow, do some playing. If you've got some kind of way of either playing or talking about playing or actually getting your name out there, this is the time. And this goes hand in hand where we are with the dreaded algorithm. Now, it is harder to get your stuff out there, but it's not impossible. And right now, you need to be pushing out as much content which shows you off as a competent musician as possible. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, if you have time, you need to start pushing this stuff out there. If you don't have time, you need to make time, because this is now very, very important. In a competitive market, everybody needs to know that you are the go-to person. So the way you do that is you are showing yourself off at any given opportunity. And right now, it's free. So jump on the bandwagon and start making that content. Tip number two, what can you improve or add to your game? Now, like I said, we aren't at this point in a recession, but we might be. So I'm giving you warning. I am giving you time. So you now have time. You might have 6 months, you might have 12 months, you might even have 18 months, who knows? So how can you become more employable tomorrow than you are today? Because you might need that. Guitarists, can you buy a bass and a bass amp? Because you will be able to go and do some extra gigs. Bass players, can you buy a keyboard and start learning some basics of some chords? Everybody, can you sing? If not, go and get some singing lessons or start practicing, because I promise you, I went through this, I promise you, when you turn up and you can sing lead as well as BVs, you are much more hireable. And I know everyone's going, oh, I can't. I said the same thing, you absolutely can. I've had so many people who've come through this office where I've just said, stop making excuses and start singing. And after a while they go, oh, actually, yeah, I could. I was just a bit worried and a bit fearful of doing it. Everyone at this point, especially in a recession, needs to do everything that they can to get work. And singing is a massive opportunity for you to find more work. Outside of instruments, you've got things like, do you drive? Do you have a car? Do you have the right gear outside of your instrument? In other words, do you have a PA? Do you have a microphone? Do you have extra gear that you can take in to make you more valuable than the next person? Anything that can make you more employable now means that you will get more work in the future, and it is about to get competitive. So again, you have time to put into this stuff now and think about it, and don't do that musician thing and leave it to the last minute. And tip number three, now is the time to prioritize your projects. Now, you probably have some passion projects, as I call them, some ego boosters, some people you like to play with, some projects you're involved with because you just enjoy doing them. I would say maybe now isn't the best time to be putting that in, because if you don't have time to go and learn a new instrument, to learn to sing, to learn to drive, to do this extra content in order to get your name out there, if you don't have time to do that, but you do have time to go and turn up to your jazz funk project on a Thursday afternoon, you probably need to look at your priorities, because work is a bit like oxygen for musicians. Oxygen is the type of thing that you don't really care about it until it's taken away, and then it's panic mode straight away. And that is what I have seen in the past. In 2008, I set up the business DK Management. At that point, bands and musicians were going out for all different types of money, and then the recession hit and everybody panicked and nobody knew what to do. And it was about very simply streamlining the whole process and make sure that the marketing was sorted and everyone had a decent amount of money to be able to get work. So at that point, you need to have everything in place, like dominoes, that you press the button and everything goes, because if you don't, it will be like your oxygen being taken away and you will start to panic. Now I want to talk about a couple of tips for if this recession kicks in. Tip number one is all about quality and value. Like I said before, this much work shrinks to this much work. So the people who are doing it well still have all the work. The people who aren't quite good enough, they lose the work. So your job is to make sure that number one, you are good enough and what you are providing is of massive quality and of huge value. Now, it's not about money. It can be. I would usually recommend thinking about your price structure when you're going out as a musician or as a band in a recession, but it's not all about money. What is about value. That's a big difference. How much you charge and how much value you're bringing people are two very, very different things. And this is about value. If people think that they are getting really good value for money, they will more likely pick you over someone else. And what will that value look like? Will it be that you're going to do more? Will you play more? Do you have more skills in your arsenal? Are you bringing more than the next person or the next band? That's value as opposed to money. You might charge the same, but you're saying, yeah, but look what you're getting extra when you employ me. So this is all about quality and value. What is it that you can do to be better than the next person? Tip number 2, sacrifice. If you don't need it, get rid of it. Now is the time to cut the fat. Things that you don't need should go in order to save you money and streamline your outgoing, because when the hits the fan, you don't want to have these extra outgoings weighing you down, meaning that you either have to quit music and go and get another job, which is going to be tough anyway in a recession. But things like, if you're living in a place which is just a little bit too big or a little bit expensive, if you've got those extra car loans, which is probably a bit too much, if you're saving up for that extra amp that you want to get, if you've got too much gear, if you've got too many subscriptions that you think you can streamline, now is the time to start streamlining what it is that your outgoings are, so that when the does hit the fan, you are lean, mean, fighting machine. Tip number 3, communication and detail. One thing that really gets overlooked, especially in a recession, is communication. Now, how do people know that you are available? How do they know that you are booked up and you are looking for work? Well, number 1, you tell them. You find a really nice way of communicating with people. So, for example, you text management companies or you text bands that you know, and you just say, just to let you know, if you need a bass player, if you need a guitarist, I can do that. Also, I can also sing a bit, or I drive as well, but if you need me, I can give you my date sheet, or just let me know and I'm happy to jump in last minute. That communication is key for people to go, oh, if I do need someone, you become the go-to person for that gig or for that band. You have that times by 20, 30, 40 different projects, and all of a sudden you will be able to get through this. Also, on top of that, I cannot tell you how important it is to be professional and be polite. In this industry, being polite goes so far. The thank yous, the please, the if I can do anything to help, the of course I can do that for you, no problem at all, and go out of my way. This is about providing more value for someone else in order to get you through the recession, because that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about forever ever. We're talking about getting you through the recession. So for example, if you have seen the film Forrest Gump, there is a scene in Forrest Gump where Forrest goes out on a shrimp boat and there's a massive storm, and that storm kills all of the other boats, and he gets back to harbor in his little boat and he is literally the competition of one, and that becomes a multi-billion-pound organization. I know that sounds silly, but whilst it's not a multi-billion-pound organization, it is a multi-million-pound organization which got started in exactly the same way. It was simply, we put something out there and everyone died in the 2008 recession. Everything went away, and we were literally in a competition of one, and everyone was looking around for the same thing, and we maximized that and we grew a business out of it. It was as simple as that. So this isn't long term, this is short term. This is like tensing a muscle. This is getting through a recession as opposed to what you need to do forever and ever and ever. But I can't tell you how value, communication, professionalism, and just being a lovely person to be around, those things mean everything. Lastly, this isn't about sitting on Facebook and bitching and moaning and whining about how the government have f***ed up or how the old people have broken our country because of Brexit. What this is about is looking ahead, seeing what's coming, and potentially navigating our way through it. If you spend your time looking backwards rather than forwards, this will hit you harder than you expect. So let me tell you one last story. In fact, it's an old Billy Connolly joke, which I think sums this up. So Billy Connolly had this joke, and it was basically two cameramen are in the desert and they're filming these lions, and the lion turns and it gives this massive roar at them, and at which point one of the guys takes off his boots and starts putting these Nike trainers on. And one of the cameramen looks at him and goes, mate, if you think you can outrun a lion, you got another thing coming. And the guy turns to him and goes, I don't need to outrun the lion, I just need to outrun you. that is what it is in a recession. It's like there is work, but everyone's after it. How are you going to get ahead of the game? How are you going to get ahead of everyone else? You're going to do that by being better than everyone else. You're going to learn more. You're going to be more prepared. You're going to have the right gear. You're going to have extra skills in your trade. You're going to be nicer. You're going to offer more. You're going to provide more value and more quality. And I promise you, if you do those things, you will come out the other side of the recession and you will look around and you will be so much further ahead than the other musicians that you will have a career for life, or at least another 10 years until the next recession kicks in, which you will already know how to deal with. So I hope that helps. Hopefully we won't have a recession, and hopefully we'll all be laughing at this video and going, oh, Damo scaremongering us. But I want you guys to be prepared, and I have been through this twice, and it can be quite scary. So if you've got any comments down below, please let's not get into politics. I don't want to do that. I'm not politically minded. I'm more motivated about making sure you guys have got work should things go wrong. But any comments, leave them down below. Anything you need, hit me up in the DMs. Do me a favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you could share this, because musicians need to know this stuff, that would be a massive help. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow.